That's a cheap way to keep your staff connected 24/7 too. Academic MO, modus operandi. I'm a real big fan of this, more so than just about anything else, is any project that we do, or any project that is normally done, let's formulate a reason. If you're not familiar with the site at the bottom, check it out. It's MIT's Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, ai.mit.edu. They have the best research abstracts that I've seen out there. It's 2 pages. You won't find one that's more than 2 pages. Anybody can write 2 pages in an hour or two. And it basically answers the question of what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, the time frames, what kind of deliverables you're going to expect. That helps frame any project that you do. Not only that, it can show your executive management and show your staff that you're doing a little bit something different. The caveat is, if you're doing basic research, you shouldn't have any boundaries. You shouldn't say, hey, I want you to do some research and some IDS for me. Okay, why would you tell them to research IDS? You tell them to go look into IDS. That's not research. Basic research is, hey, I've got 40 hours. Why don't you go investigate whatever you think's the coolest thing out there for 40 hours and come back and tell me what you learned. Come back and teach your team what you learned. These abstracts are great for concepts of operations, right? It keeps people focused. Once you get in the framework of writing these, you can also say at the end of the year, hey, we had these 50 projects. Here's 2-page abstracts on every single project we did and completed. That's a huge thing. I can't tell you how many times I've walked into team situations and talked to other managers in the industry, and I'm like, yeah, we don't do anything like this. We've never even heard of people doing this before. They don't teach you this. And you're like, well, it's one of the things that can set your team apart. You can say, what kind of project do you want to learn about? Here's what our focus was, and yeah, we met our deadline. Kind of interesting. Elements of failures. Team members don't feel that abstracts provide value. This is kind of tough. We're working with a lot of technologists out there, and sometimes they'll think, I hate status reports. It's such a waste of time. I'd rather just play on my laptops here. All right, well, that's great. We got to get them to believe that the first thing they have an idea of, hey, if you want to propose me a project that we're working on, you think you got an idea how to make the network more efficient, you think you have an idea of how to make something more secure, right? Man, opposite, a con-op. Same with MIT. Everybody knows that people up there are smart. I never went there, but I know they're smart. And still individual ownership. That's not my house, but I hope it is one day. That's what I got in management. Personal ownership. The idea of personal ownership is huge. I used to do code reviews and web app assessments a few years back, and still do them every now and then. And while those are great, if you don't come to work every day and say, hey, here's my spot on the team, and you can't tell your friends and your family and the people you meet at a bar or the people that you meet in Vegas at Blackout what you do or what you're responsible for, your manager has failed you. You have no career path then. You have no area of expertise. This is huge. I can't tell you, I walked into a team once at Goddard, and he said, hey, what do you do? I don't really know. Oh, what are you good at? I kind of do a lot of everything. Okay, he's gone in a year. The guy's gone in a year. If you don't give him something that he can work harder to and say, hey, this is what I do and I'm the best at it, they're gone. Action items, ensure that every employee has at least one widget, and that is completely their responsibility. So find out whether it be scanning or handling an IDS or just managing a phone, whatever it is. Let that be theirs, so that way they can come back and say, oh, here's innovation on it. If you work for a software company, give a guy a piece of code and let that be his code. That way he can go home and think about it at night and go, man, I got to make this better. I got to make the team better. I got to make the software better. Elements of failure. You can't create a spreadsheet with employee-assigned ownership. Right? One of the things I always do and I always recommend is take your staff, put them on a spreadsheet, and then put what they own next to it, right there. And let all the staff know who owns what. And if they want to own something different or they want co-ownership of something else, that's fine, but they got to at least have one thing that's theirs and theirs alone. That's also how performance plans work. Accountability models. This is, outside of communication, probably the biggest thing. Everybody's heard the term micromanagement. Accountability models. Give them deadlines. Live and die by the deadline. And it's not, hey, you've got a project and you've got to do it in 2 weeks. The trick of the trade is to sit down with them, let them talk you through the project and how they think they're going to work it, and give you the deadline. Say you think you need to have it a week from Friday. Well, ask them how long they think it's going to take, talk about a scope. Maybe they need to go away and think about it for a couple hours and come back. So be it. When they come back and say, I think I can do this by next Friday, or I think it's going to take 3 weeks, but I don't know, I really want to get you something else. Can you do it by next Friday? Yeah, I think so. Okay, good. Now you've just mutually agreed upon a deadline that they gave you, and they think they can do it. It's not just something you pushed on them. They came to you and said, I can do this by next Friday. This is great, because then I don't need to talk to them anymore. Proactive, right? Laissez-faire. Keep your hands off. You have a deadline, I don't need to call you up and say, hey, how's that project coming? God, that's annoying. How many of you have ever said, hey, how's that project coming? Or you call somebody on the phone, you're like, hey, where are you? That's the most annoying thing in the world. Anybody calls you, what are you doing? Where are you? You're like, what does it matter? I'm working. What does it matter? I haven't missed a deadline in 3 years. That's the important thing. Create weekly, monthly, and quarterly production schedules. These accountability models get to actually, you can start trending your deadlines. You can start saying, okay, I've got 8 guys on my team. Here's the projects we're working for the next 2 months. Here's who's doing them. Here's the deadlines they've given me. You know, I know John's a pretty good worker. He meets 83% of his deadlines, and that's based on the 12 projects he's done. Create process that states it's a staff job to communicate schedule deviations. I'm not going to call you and ask you, how's that project coming? Are you going to make deadline next Friday? That's micromanagement. It's not standing over your shoulder and asking what you're doing every day, but that's micromanagement. If you're going to miss your deadline, you have to call me and say, hey, I'm going to miss my deadline, here's why. And we talk about it. Was it scoped improperly? Did a more priority issue come up? And we say, okay, I understand. You know, we had an intrusion. You're doing a little bit of IR for the team right now. All right, well, how about another week? Let them give you the deadline. Rescope it. If you're missing deadlines all the time, then you've got a problem with your system. It's not priorities. If priorities always come up and you've got one guy that's really good and he also handles your IR and he always gets pulled, well, plan for that in the deadlines. This is what people like when they say, oh, this year I made 95% of my deadlines. That's the goal, 95% of deadlines. You say 95% of your deadlines, you're going to have a really productive team. Measurable productivity. With deadlines comes measurement, right? Who's seen ISS? Anybody use ISS for products, especially Scanner? Have the idea of a technical report, an executive report, and a middle manager report. What do you see on the technical report? Lots of text. What do you see on the management report? Pictures. They're dumber. They don't understand what that stuff means. How many of you guys hand your executives a one-page executive level report that's got a picture on it? It says, here's how my team's doing. Anybody? Why not? That's what they understand. Colors, pictures. Oh, this looks good. Look at this. We met 93% of our deadlines this month. I'm real happy. They don't know what you're doing. No idea. They just know that your network's secure, your product is doing great. You know, if I'm a venture capitalist investing in a software company that got high margins, what's my favorite words? We're on time, we're under budget. Wow, that's nuts. If you do that, you're going to get a bridge check, and you'll have that house a couple slides back. So, with these things, this is stuff that, well, we don't have tools for it. Put it in Excel, click on Tools, go down to Chart, and say, hey, here's the guys that are meeting their deadlines, and you can chart this stuff out pretty easily. Take an hour to set up your process and your system and your tools, then you can show people pictures. You'll be the most popular manager in the world. Measurable and easily understood productivity gains and losses. The more you can communicate to your executives, your venture capitalists, your CEO, that your team's doing well, that you're meeting your goals, the easier it is to grow your team. If a guy doesn't know what you're doing, how often you are succeeding, then you can never build the business case to say, hey, I've got 5 guys now, I really want to get it to 10. Here's what I can do with 10 people. Right now, you can see the projects we've been working on. Here's our abstracts. You can talk, here's how we manage our workflow. We've got people on AM all day long. They're required to be on Instant Messenger from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock. Make a window. Don't say you got to be on from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Okay, well, that's nothing. It's like coming in the office. What if you have to be on between 11 and 3? Gives you a 4-hour block every day. Maybe you can slide the scale back and forth. He wants to start a little later, so be it. If he's meeting his deadlines, what do you really care? If you've got a happy team that talks all day long, what do you care where they are or what they're doing? So, graph success rates, action items. Graph success rates on achieved deadlines. Showing this is the easiest way to grow your team. Plus, it's the easiest way to identify problem child or areas you've got to work on for your team. If you say, man, Jason here just keeps missing his deadlines every week. What's the problem? Is it the problem that he always scopes it too slow and has too many things to do? Is it that he's, not very productive? Or is there a real problem there? So work with the problem children. Elements of failure. At any given point, you can't answer the question, how often does your staff meet small and large team and individual milestones? How many of you guys know that right now? Your success rates. There's no hands. Not because it's the most boring, non-technical talk here, but it's not much. Nobody comes in and says, hey, we're at 80% this month. Great. What are you doing? Hybrid goal setting. Everybody's heard of incentives? How many of you guys get bonuses? Just keep it to yourself. Bonuses are great, right? How many of you guys get bonuses based on team goals? Who likes team sports? I hated team sports growing up. The worst feeling was me having a great game in soccer and somebody else doing terrible and we lose the game. I'd go home and be like, God, I did everything perfect. I'm perfect. I couldn't head the ball. It was too short, but I thought I had a good game. You got to have both. You got to have individual and team goals. Team goals help build the concept of a team. You can't just put a bunch of individuals in a room and say, okay, we're going to be a good team because we're all working towards the same deadline and the same communication path. It's just not going to work. So here's how we do it. Individual goals are vital for establishing ownership and success rates. Excellent morale boosters. It creates a little bit of functionality in your team. If Mark's doing better than Jonathan or Sarah's doing better than Jonathan, well, maybe that's going to make Jonathan work harder. If it's not, if it doesn't incentivize him to work harder and get his deadlines, you've got a bad employee. Be proactive about it. Move them on. Sit down, talk to them, work with them. I'm a huge fan of the idea and the concept of breeding people and not buying them. I'd rather have a smart kid at a Carnegie Mellon than a guy that's been doing something for 20 years and has no more enthusiasm in his day-to-day job. I don't care how smart he is. Give me a boy genius, and we'll teach him how to do security. It's not rocket science. Action items. As a sub-action item for creating work schedules, for creating schedules of work activities. Okay. Deadlines and goal setting is real close. Goal setting can say, okay, I want the whole team to meet 90% of our deadlines for our next quarter. If we do that, you get a day off and I'll take you to lunch. That's a great team goal. Team deadlines. That way, if somebody else has missed their deadline, the whole team's like, they're there helping them out. Hey, I know you got that thing coming out. Let me help you out. I'm a little bit ahead of mine. Great for team bonding. All tasks should have deadlines, and staff congratulate when milestones are met. Walk into them and congratulate them. I don't care if you do it via email, pat on the back, a $500 American Express gift certificate, whatever it is. Congratulate them. So many people forget about congratulating people for doing a job well done that you don't get excited to come back to work the next day. I mean, how often do you do something well and your boss walks in the office and is like, hey, that was really good. I'm pretty impressed. I can't remember the last time you missed a deadline. Oh, that abstract for that project you want to do, that was really sharp. I never even thought of doing something like that. I think that could save us a lot of money. Kind of cool. Congratulate them. They're like children. They're your children. Ratio goals. Elements of failure. If you have more than a 4-to-1 ratio in either direction, you're doing a bad job. Hands down. If you've got 5 individual goals for a person and they don't have any team goals or there's no team goals like that, it's too not balanced. The idea usually is about 3 individual goals for 2 team goals, right? You don't want to split half and half. You got to favor more on the individual side because there is that idea of individual ownership, instilling, value in what you do every day. The idea that gets you up out of bed and says, I'm excited to go to work. More than 5% of goals are not achieved. Yeah, I know that sounds really small, but once you start doing it this way, it's going to be really big. You're going to be, you're going to go crazy every time a deadline's not met because you're like, this is messing up my numbers. I've got to add another color to my graph now. I'm not happy. Okay. I'm sure everybody's real familiar with, everybody's real familiar with the idea of Google and the IPO. And we're talking about innovation. Who's really got innovation? Is Microsoft or Google? I mean, they're some of the 2 biggest companies out there right now that think they're doing innovation. There's a great article in my favorite magazine called the MIT Technologist, and it actually was named something about startup companies having more innovation or seeming to have more innovation. Why is that? How come you don't see these big companies coming out with great new things all the time? What's the problem? Well, it didn't answer it, and I don't have an answer for that yet either. But the perception is that only innovative people go to startup companies. Maybe it's because you walk into the office and everybody's happy to be there. You've all got skin in the game. You know that you could be out of a job in a year if you're not working your ass off together. How do you take that mindset, that living lifestyle, and bring it to your big company team or to your small company team? That's what you want. You want to walk in every day and have people go home and be like, man, I love my job. I can't imagine what it would be like to work anywhere else. That's the best feeling in the world. And you don't have to bribe them with Kahlua and coffee in the morning. More importantly, how do you breed innovation internally? This is one of the toughest things. A great way that Google is doing is their 20% free reign rule, right? 20% of your time, if you're in the technical field, is just opened up for basic research. Basic research being the idea that there's no limitations. They say, hey, here's 20% of your time. Now, I haven't worked for Google. I don't exactly know their management reporting structure, but I know that if I was going to offer a 20% free reign rule, which is something that I did on a similar team, and it was more about 8%, all you got to do is ask for the abstract before you give them the time. You say, hey, I'm going to give you a week, twice a year to do basic research. That makes people real happy because they're thinking, I'm going to give you 2 weeks twice a year to do basic research. Come back with a tool, come back and just teach the team whatever you did. If they just take a vacation, you got a bad employee. You should be excited about this kind of work stuff. Microsoft's Basic Research Initiative, they actually have a group called Basic Research, and it's spelled just like that. And basic research is not in software technology. I know a couple of guys, and I know the guy that was running that, and I was asking him, I said, hey, how do you have basic research, and how do you keep coming up with these things like the Microsoft Watch? Has anybody seen this or heard of the Microsoft Watch that gets this feed from radio stations? It gets a data feed from radio stations all over the country. They started out with 100 radio stations that was piling it. Nothing to do with operating systems. But a guy sat there and goes, hey, it would be cool if I could get my instant messenger on my phone throughout the world. And it turned into a real product. So, action items. Create a plan to rotate open time frames, training and research time. Like I said, 1 week, 3 to 4 months would probably be ideal. Anything else than that's kind of hard to justify. And believe it or not, it can be justified if you're meeting your deadlines. You say, hey, we're doing this. It makes my team happier. They work harder. It's real easy to do this. It's real easy to do this. Report writing. Don't ask for a report after they're done on what they did. Man, that's a waste of time. Have a brown bag lunch. Tell everybody to bring their lunch in, or if they're excited about it, they're going to document what they did because it's new, right? If you say, hey, you have to write a report, it's no longer innovation. It's, okay, I'm micromanaging you again. Really upset. Lead by example. First and foremost, a leader must be respected by his staff. Don't worry about the people you work for or the people you work with. If I'm the CFO of the company, let's pick technology. If I'm the IT manager, right, and we've got a security group, don't worry about pleasing your boss right away. I know no one will ever tell you that. Your boss is the least important person. Your boss will be happy when you're productive. Trust me. You don't have to make good friends with them. You don't have to sit there and politic with them all day long and bullshit with them 12 hours a day. All you have to do is be respected by your staff. The second you're respected by your staff, they're going to work harder. You'll meet more deadlines. Peer level respect will follow. People will want to know what your trick is for how you made your team so happy. People from other teams in the organization will be like, how do I get in the security group? How do I get in the IDS team? How do I get on this side of the product development house? They want to jump over because they know that they're really happy. Everybody comes in smiling. They talk about all these neat things you're doing. You talk about these concept operations in your free research time. All the other managers are just saying, oh, what are you doing? The micromanage the heck out of the people and make them upset. So action items. Work smarter and harder. You can't do just one. If you're a manager, you're expected to work longer hours. How many managers work on hourly rates? Nobody. Your salary, because they expect you to work like a dog. Okay, now that you're working like a dog, set up the tools first. Work smarter, and then start working harder. If you work 12 hours a week, how could you possibly ask anybody else to work 40 for you? Tough. Lead by example. Double check emails for accuracy. Man, you really look dumb if you got a spelling error in your email. I'm sorry. If you send out an email, you spelled somebody's name wrong, or you say a word that doesn't really make any sense, you look like an idiot. An email is one of those things that lasts forever. It'll haunt you. If you say something stupid, somebody saved it, guaranteed. Maybe they'll use it against you one day. Double check your emails. And you don't need to send out emails for every question. If you're sending an email out and it just has one line or a question like, hey, how's that project coming? Or, hey, what are your thoughts on this new Microsoft IDS product that they're going to release in 2005? Why don't you just send them that email? What do you want, like a dissertation in response? It's terrible. Last thing, champion ethics, strong value systems, family, and personal development. This is huge. You can go out and you can party with the people. You can go out and earn their respect, buy them drinks, and socialize them and go to lunch. But if you're not a good person, I mean, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be a good manager. I had a manager once lie to me. Best friends with the guy I'm working for. Manager sits down, she tells me one story, turns to my other friend, tells him a different story in a one-on-one conversation. When we got out later that evening, and we found out that she lied to one of us. No idea which one it was, but she told us opposite stories. I lost all respect. All respect. And I guarantee you that when the performance appraisal time came around, I said, look, she lacks something that you can't teach. She has no ethics, and she lies. I will no longer respect this person. I'll work for her and professionally sit there and have a civil conversation, but I no longer wanted to work real hard for her. She lied to me. It's ridiculous. Strong value systems, family, that's self-explanatory. Elements of failure. Unexpected voluntary personal resignation. How many people have had someone quit and you didn't expect it? That's a problem. You should know when someone's unhappy. Staff unwillingness to go above and beyond. If you have to beg someone or bribe them or set up deals, hey, I really need this done, you shouldn't even have to ask them, right? The idea of having deadlines is, oh, man, I misscoped this. Now I've got to work extra hard to make sure I meet my deadline. They should want to do this. It shouldn't ever be you going, oh, we've got to work harder, a couple hours extra this week, guys, so we meet our deadlines. That happens all the time. Software development house is like, oh, we've got bugs, we've got to stay late. Why is the manager saying that? Does he really have an idiot staff that doesn't know where they have bugs and you have to stay late to fix it? Why not come out and say, hey, I'm here with you guys until it's done. What can I do to help? I'm a manager. I mean, maybe I can't fix some of the code, but I can buy you dinner, and I can walk through and do point-and-click testing, and I can show you that I'm going to be there until the end, until it's done. Lack of realized initiatives. This is also a real common miss-up. You have a conversation with somebody, and you go, oh, that's a great idea. We should talk about that. Okay. If that just dies right there, so be it. Initiatives, got to have the concept, operations. Give me a 2-page overview. If you're serious about doing something and you think this is a really good idea, you can't write it down in 2 pages, you've got a problem. Got a couple more minutes. Real quick wrap up. One of my favorite sentences. If those people, you have to sometimes read it twice. What's good for the company is good for the team, not vice versa. While I said earn the respect of your team through the peers and your boss will follow, that's the method you have to do it. However, you don't put the team before the company. So it's kind of a hard abstract concept to realize. When the company's doing good, start over. If you ever got the idea that you go, oh, well, you've got to change your team operating methods because we're going to make more money that way. Well, that's really great, but if you lose sight of the big picture, which is making your company money or saving your company money, whichever kind of team you're on, that's the picture. You software, you make money. You're a cost center, you do security for an internal company, you save money. That's the 2 goals. That's what you have to keep in mind. So we're done. We can take a couple minutes of questions. I know we only have 20 minutes, and we're looking for the next presenter. Any questions? Thoughts? Solutions? Potentially things you disagree with me on? You can try it and see if it works. All right. Enjoy. Thanks. Have fun.